And today we have an extremely important topic that we'll be discussing about, and it focuses on building hyper-local value chains for Indian agriculture. We've seen the emergence of local procurement and distribution models, but we'll talk about how hyperlocality has a role to play in Indian agriculture. For that, I would like to introduce a very eminent panel. We have with us Mr. Shashank Singh, who is the co-founder of Poshan, and Mr. Gaurav Podar, who is the VP for Farmer Services Dehat, and Mr. Anupam Pandey, who is the Chief Technical Officer for Farms, and our moderator, Mr. Ajay Kakra, who's the Managing Partner for JU Agri Sciences. Now, I would request Mr. Kakra to please take reins of the session and introduce everyone and give a brief opening remark.
Thanks a lot, Vikas. Hi all. Good afternoon. Welcome to this session of hyper-local value chains in agriculture. Before we get into the discussion, I'll request each of our participants, eminent participants, to give a short brief on their introduction so that our audience knows them well. They know who they are, who is our finalist, and how they would be adding value to us. And then we can go ahead with our guys. Can you switch off the mics? Anyone who is not speaking. Gaurav, while I'll start with you, just a
Yes,
short
sir.
introduction of yourself.
Yes, sir. We are a plant tissue culture company, and we are producing tissue culture banana and teak plants
Wait,
on
wait a
commercial
second.
scale.
Sorry.
Wait a second. No, Dr. Gaurav Krishna, we are talking about our panelist, Mr. Gaurav Podar.
Oh,
Could
sir,
you
sorry,
please
sir.
stay on mute? Yeah, could you please stay on mute?
Sorry, sir, sorry.
Yeah, so only these three people, the guys who are on the panel, Gaurav, Shashank, and Anupam, I think we are discussing right now with them. And once we're through, then we can take questions and we can have the discussions done.
Thanks,
Please.
Ajay. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Uh, Myself, Gaurav, I work as a Vice President, Farmer Service Head at Bihar, looking the entire thing happening around farmers, right from the right quality of seeds to the market linkage that we are providing to farmers. So everything Dehat is offering with the help of technology and serving around 1.5 million farmers around 11 states. Uh, Under one umbrella, providing the entire hyperlocal value chain, right from farms to farmers to last mile connectivity to warehouse uh, to agri institution, and providing a complete transparency to all our partners. Working in around 190 districts as of now, and covering the entire value chain. So that's a brief introduction about Dehat.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Gaurav. We'll have more views from you once we get into the discussion. I'll now request Anupam Pandey, CTO for Farms. Anupam, can you please briefly introduce yourself? What kind of work do you do, and uh, about your work? Anupam, you're there?
Sorry, I was on mute. So thanks, Ajay. Thanks for this opportunity. And I will introduce myself as a farmer and who turned into a boring banker and then turned to entrepreneur in farms. So we started in the COVID times when we realized that this hyper local this supply chain is needed for the people who are in need of this kind of delivery at the most. That farmers and people where Amazon of the world were catering to the urban population, and these farmers were not getting it. So we started in that era, and right now we are operational in 6 states. And I'm handling as a product officer. I'm handling this product onboarding and everything. But and recently I have taken the this responsibility of strategy and new initiative for farms as well, which we'll discuss during the journey.
That's
Thank you.
great. That's great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Anupam. Shashank, over to you, please.
Thanks, Ajay. So I'm Shashank. I'm one of the co-founders at Poshan. At Poshan, we are building a B2B commodity trading platform for bulk commodities. So on a supply side, we are tying up very strongly with the processors and manufacturers, dominantly of agri commodities. So once things are out of farm, they have to go to certain processing units, barring, I think, fresh and vegetable, everything has to go via processing cycles. So our suppliers happen to be these processors and manufacturers. On the buy side, we are working with all the wholesalers who are out there, be it a general trade wholesaler who we are very acclimatized to, or it's a modern trade wholesaler, or it's a e-commerce wholesaler. So we are servicing on that side. On a commodity specific, we have a whole commodities that be to it starting sugar, edible oils, flours, rice, etc. And from a spread, geographical spread, very dominant in the northern part of the country. So across all these states, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, etc., and very making our presence felt in the southern states as well, starting right from the heart of technology, Bangalore. So yeah, that's a brief about me and my company.
Thanks a lot, Shashank. And I'll introduce myself. I'm the moderator here. I'm Ajay Kakra, the managing partner for JU Agri Innovation Venture. We are investors who invest into early stage agri-tech startups across India and outside India also, where people who are developing good innovative business models in agriculture sector or allied like forestry or dairy, poultry, anything to do with the agriculture systems, but does have a good technology layering to it. And that's a brief background about me. I worked for 22 years in the agriculture sector across agri input companies, banks, and consulting outfits. So now let's begin with the quickly get into the topic that we have: hyperlocal value chains in agriculture, developing hyperlocal value chains in agriculture. I think this is a very recent topic. Let's understand what's hyperlocal businesses or hyperlocal value chains are. For hyperlocal things, basically systems or businesses or platforms which are looking at building a local ecosystem for catering to the customers as well as the buyers who have local demand locally. So this is how it works. I mean, it actually looks at the demand and the supply, which can demand which can be catered locally through resources or supplies from a local system or local suppliers. That will actually cover the hyperlocal space. It will include, for us, it will include farmers on one end who is actually producing, input companies who can actually supply to them, the output which the farmers are producing, and the consumers who are placed in consumption centers near the production area. So that's how hyper local value chain of food at least works. This has different modalities, and let's also understand why we are actually talking of hyper local. And no one was talking of this maybe before pandemic. So I think the pandemic has actually given us a good conscience and good uh, relevance to this topic, that yes, this kind of thing is required. And when the pandemic struck, everyone knows that yes, supply chains were disrupted. We were left with high volumes of production, but consumption centers, the distant consumption centers, were not able to do that. You were not logistically connected. There were no visibility of trade routes. There were no visibility of demand. So it actually gave a lot of insights to the businesses, to the people who are working across value chain, on understanding the consumer demands, also understanding the local supply strength, and then connecting the dots between them. Also, this is now becoming more popular with the thing that consumers are now asking for more and more convenience. They want quick. It is so quick that I mean, there are also thoughts that e-commerce might change to a q-commerce, which is a quick commerce. So that's the kind of power it has to change businesses. But other things is that the development of platforms, the development of e-marketplaces, that has also become, and penetration of mobile, usage of mobile, adoption of technology, that has also led to a lot of hyper-local value chains. Be it in agriculture, or maybe it is like a Dunzo or a Urban Clap or anything that we can think of, a Yellow, which is also there. So those kind of models which have actually come up considering this concept in mind. The industry, if we talk of industry in India, I mean, I'm considering all the sectors across, it is around $1,300 billion. That was in 2019 and slated to grow to around $3,700 billion by 2027. So that's a huge potential, but this is across. Obviously, agri and food is one part of it, which is a major part of it also. And this will also grow with the coming time. But when we talk of hyperlocal value chain, there are a lot of challenges. I mean, it may be in terms of logistics, planning, it may be in terms of deep technology setup. You need to invest into that. Only then hyperlocal value chains work very, optimally. and also into the inventory management. You are very, very careful. You have to be very careful about the inventory management, how it can be done at different stages. But there are benefits. Benefits are there in terms of scaling, expanding part. Benefits are there that you can do a targeted marketing, you can have your target, you can work on those targets, and the output of your marketing becomes very, very apparent, quantifiable. Also, quality and inventory can be managed properly, because quality is something which is very close to the consumer, and based on quality, your work, your things can work out. So there are four pillars to it: maybe transaction, delivery, communication, and services, which needs to be considered. Obviously, you guys are better knowing to it, and we'll get into the details of that a little later. And something on the offline and the online world in agriculture, now we are getting a new term which is called the phygital part. So that means it's both physical as well as digital, and a lot of people are looking at getting into that, because agriculture cannot be only digital. It has to be some bit of physical, and then probably once the AIs and the algorithm gets developed, it can actually look at more of digital, less of physical part of it. But yes, factors like quality, consistency, transparency, getting a local flavor, that's becoming very, very, very important. So with this background, now what we'll do is we'll have an open question here. I'll request all of my participants, all the panelists. So we know that hyperlocal is now becoming a known fact. So I'll just pose a question to you, that whether do you believe in short, quick few sentences, just let me know your views. Do you think that hyperlocal value chains would be a kind of a long-term trend in the agricultural sector, agriculture food sector? Or do you believe that it's going to be a fad? It is going to perish away. Maybe it was because of the pandemic, it was created, and now things are becoming okay. It's going to perish away also. So over to you guys. Anyone can pick up. Shashank, I'll begin with you, and then maybe Gaurav and...
Thanks. I think it's a very interesting point that you are making. Actually, if you look at pre-digitization era, when this one Amazons and Flipkarts of the world was still not that rampant, hyperlocal was the flavor of town. I mean, we have always gone and purchased vegetables in and around, and we have purchased commodities in and around. So this is not something new that has come up. Obviously, with the advent of that Flipkart and Amazon, we started getting things from the remotest parts of the world. But then even in the digital era, hyperlocal became a trend. Like you mentioned, it quick commerce with bunch of companies coming into play. This thing has come into force very fast, and pandemic did accelerate that. I think for a country like India, hyperlocal will always be relevant and very relevant. The point that remains is that how fast and how quickly we can adopt to those consumer preferences which are out there. Can we fulfill those consumer preferences in a most efficient way? Because end of the day, anybody running a company will have to look at the viability and scalability of the models that they are bringing in. Sending a 10 rupee item, 15 rupee item, 4 kilometers in next 5 minutes might not be the flavor of the town as we are moving forward. But yeah, the model has to stay. It will adopt to the audience that are around. It will adopt to the profitability which should be in the ecosystem. But here to stay. India is a very large country, and there will be pockets of such hyper-local geographies that will come out, will be self-sustainable, and will be going towards it. Also, I think consumers have become very conscious of the fact things that are coming from, say, 2,000 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers, having those packaging material involved. Audience is also getting very conscious of fresh, organic, etc., and that will further accelerate the hyper-local nature of the business.
Great. Yeah. So consumer preferences makes a lot of difference here. Gaurav, we'll move to you. Your views on it.
Thanks, Ashan, for putting such a nice thought on the topic. So definitely it's going to stay for long. Like 3 days back, we have heard that government of India has released a gadget on insecticide that you can sell insecticide on e-commerce. So that's a way to look forward, that even Indian government is looking forward for such opportunities, because they know the scale is going to only come via these models. On top of it, talking about the hyperlocal, if you have the right ingredients, like if you have the hyperlocal weather forecast information, if you have the local package of practice about the crop, if you have hyperlocal last mile connectivity, all those systems, those who are talking in a close community, if you have the right ingredients, also, so in that ecosystem, definitely hyperlocal is going to stay, because talking about the e-commerce in this agri sector, it's not a normal e-com. It's not like you can just hit and run. You can just provide the material on discount and you just hit and run, because that authenticity need to be there. You can't sell substandard product. So having local community involved, that these problems are already well taken care. Because things are coming from local. There's a local community involved. The demand is going to aggregate from local. The right ingredients for collecting all those demand. All those information are localized. So all these things. So definitely, like hyperlocal is going to stay for a long. Unit economics is definitely going to be a challenge for us, because when you are delivering, or even if you are not delivering, you're talking about the ticket size, the average order value. In agriculture, talking about the areas like Bihar, Jharkhand, the ticket size is very small. Talking about the areas like Maharashtra, Gujarat, ticket size is very high. So definitely, region to region, this ticket size or unit economics is going to give a pain. But as soon as we start evolving, we'll find a new route to solve this problem. But definitely, hyperlocal is the way forward, and that is going to stay for now.
Great. So some points coming out of it. I mean, authenticity, the last mile connectivity, as well as local community involvement.
Yeah.
And then you come into the unit economics of it. So those are
Yeah.
factors which will actually be governing the hyperlocal spread across country. Anupam, now we move to you. I mean, what do you think? Is it going to be staying there, or it's a fad?
So, Ajay, it is like establishing a conveyor belt in the rural sector. So it is much needed, and irrespective of what you gonna put in that conveyor belt, whether it can be agri input, it can be FMCG, it can be anything. But this hyper value chain needed, and it's gonna stay. The key things would be how effective and how efficient we can make it, so that it solve the purpose of that hyper local community, right? So for example, if you are selling 200 rupees of product, but you are charging this $150 for shipping it, it will not make sense for a rural person to buy it. So this conveyor belt has to be very, very, very effective as well as efficient to serve the purpose.
Right. So effectiveness and efficient, that's going to be critical for the hyperlocal value chains. So now, with these initial thoughts, let's move on to a little more discussion about different aspects of hyperlocal value chains. Now, hyperlocal value chains, it has some bit of component of the physical part of it, but yes, a lot of it also depends on the digital part of it. Now, those digitization of different processes, of different systems, of different transactions that we do, that makes it more efficient, the thing that you were talking. So we'll continue your thought on this, Anupam, that how digitization can make it more efficient, or actually help us create a local ecosystem which will be conducive for hyperlocal value chains. And it will also, I mean, we also would like to know that how would the adoption of these digitization tools will happen in different stakeholders, like the farmer or the logistic operator or anyone who is there into quality. So that's very important aspect that we would like to know from you, Anupam.
Sure, Ajay. So I had worked in banking sector for 16 years, and predominantly in rural areas. So I have been part of Kotak Bank's financial inclusion team. So if we talk about this digitalization in rural areas and hyperlocal areas, then the most important thing, as you rightly questioned, Jay, is adoption, right? So, and this adoption is predominantly, as far as my opinion is concerned, is predominantly dependent on two factors. Factor number one is trust. The most important factor is trust, and second factor is hand holding. So when we started farm, to my amazement, we found a smartphone in each household. We were not expecting that, but we found that it is available. What is needed is to create a ecosystem on which farmers or these rural people can trust, number one. And we need, as you rightly said, this journey is not complete digital. This journey is phygital. You need a warm body to tell them, to teach them, to handhold them. so that they can trust that no boss, this is useful, this is trustworthy, and this is for their benefit. So I will narrate this incident when I was traveling to Saharanpur to meet one of. So I was accompanying my this logistics vehicle through which we were delivering this. So the lady of the house was making the digital payment, right? And she was very comfortable doing it. So and that was a really positive surprise for me. So so what I have observed, Ajay, is one, this journey has to be digital. It is not complete digital. It has to be digital, and the adoption curve will predominantly will be dependent on these two factors. One is trust, and second is how you handhold them. So just to quote some figures, on the board is when we started our this collections were 20% digital and rest all was cash, right?
Mhm.
And we are very happy to share that we have come from 20% to 80%, right? So that's a huge shift. That's a really huge shift. And thanks to all these Paytm, Bharat Pay, UPI, thanks to all these payment solution providers that they have made it very simple for the consumer to use. Now the only thing is left, building trust and handholding of the farmers.
So that's about payments. I'll still I mean, dwell deeper into it. What about products of insurance or banking products? That's also there. So does this trend follows there also, or it's a different story there?
Yes, yes, of course. This is I'm not only talking about this payment. Digital is buying your products, agri inputs, or any products through your app, ordering them and get receiving it, making payment, buying another product like banking and this insurance product. So lot of service providers are there who are delivering their product end to end digitally, no paperwork involved, right? The only thing that I'm reiterating, that only thing is that farmer, first you need to win the trust of the farmer. You need to build trust that these digital journey is safe, his money is safe, he will get a good quality of product. Like the heart is you have to be focused on the quality that you are delivering to the farmers and these rural people. So digitalization, it includes all the banking product, insurance product, buying this agri input online, and the payment as well.
Okay, so I'll still further get into it and also ask you that buying part of the inputs. So input is one very critical element to the farming operations. So when we look at inputs, I mean, one very critical aspect is the advisory part where the farmers actually grapple to find what kind of herbicide or pesticide they should be putting up. And there are newer models which are coming up, which basically looks at taking a photo of the disease that you have and actually get it corrected and checked with the with some expert, and then or the AI runs into it. So would that kind of adoption would also happen? This is like a deep tech models.
Yes.
So I'll try to take your view on how the deep tech models could actually work, which are working completely on AI ML kind of a system.
Right. So, if you talk personally, my view, we have gone through this KVK mode, right, where we get the advisory from this agri scientists and everybody. We have not chosen that this photographic or AI ML route, because see, on advisory we need to be very cautious, because the entire crop of that farmer is dependent on that advisory, right? So we are focusing through particular trained professional agri scientists and kvks for this recommended advisory. We are refraining ourselves to go to this AI and ML part, because not we are not subject matter specialists of that. Maybe, see, this is also a journey, right? So when you are talking about AI and ML, they have to undergo lot many testings. So lot many diseases are there, lot many pests are there, and you have heard this quote कि इंडिया में ना हर मील पे जो है पानी और भाषा बदल जाती है, तो इसी तरीके से there is lot of diversity. So you have to be very sure, you have to be very sure, because entire crop of that farmer is dependent on that advice.
Great. So I think these are really nice thoughts that we had from you, and giving us a good insight into how adoption, what kind of changes or what kind of factors are there for adoption, how adoption will happen into it, and for adoption to happen, I mean, digitization, what role it can play. So that's really good. Before we move on to now to Shashank. I'll just request all the audience that yes, we also would be requesting you for any questions, queries that you have. You can post it in the chat. We'll be answering the questions, some of the important questions at the end of the session, last 10 minutes of the session. So if you have any queries, please put it there. Now let's do one thing. Let's move to Shashank. Shashank, I think very important thing which was coming out of Anupam's thing is, now let's continue on that part. I mean, he's saying that there's a lot of variation which is happening, and you need to have some technology, some tools with you to understand. So that brings to me to a very important aspect, which is of data and analytics. And Shashank, you being one of the pioneers of, I mean, doing that in Potion. I mean, you've been looking at how data, the relevant data for the buyers, and how, what is the demand among the buyers, what kind of demand, the variation in the demand happening, and correlating that to the supply, what kind of supply is there. So those kind of things are very, very important for your business model, and obviously this is also very important for a hyperlocal businesses which are going to grow. So I just want to check from you, have your views on what impact does data and analytics play on it, and how it will play a very critical role in unlocking the value that we are talking of in building the hyperlocal value chains.
I'll pick up from where Anupam left. He mentioned about the vagaries of variance that are there in our country, right? I mean, every geography has its own soil type, its own crops that they are growing, its own challenges with rainfall, etc. So it's highly unlikely that we will be ever able to bring in such a gamut of experts and then take them to each and every geography that is present out there. So it's highly unlikely, and that is how unique that India as a country. You talk about any other major economy, mostly, okay, the climate is same, the soil is same, the kind of crops that they are growing is same. So there is a lot of standardization that is out there. However, in our country, the variance is very huge. And that is where data and AI ML that you have been talking about plays a very, very critical role. So I'll give you an example how our platform has been helpful in that particular senses. So you will get a lot of requirements which are particular to buyers. Now, it's very difficult for those buyers to identify a wide range of suppliers who would be able to cater to those requirements. A lot of time, not one set of supplier will be able to cater to it. You will need bunch of other suppliers, and now you're going through a journey of middlemen finding those suppliers and then getting those requirements fulfilled. So at Potion, we had seen that it typically takes half a day for the buyer to figure out what is the right kind of supplier for him, and then another couple of hours to haggle on the pricing, etc. itne ka padega, itne ka nahi padega, and then the reliability that is coming. Agar agree bhi ho gaya hai, kya maal supply ho jayega? I mean, Dehat will know this at the very core of it कि मतलब problems 50 तरीके की आ रही हैं, solve करने वाले वो दो scientists हैं जो आपके कैसे करेंगे? How will they be able to do it? So that is where data will be the differentiator. Why will the heart, or for that reason any agri-tech startup, be successful at the core of things which have been done for centuries, right? Farming to ho hi rahi thi saalon se. What is that they are going to do different? So that is where your data will come into picture. Data will be able to bring in all of these points that we have been discussing, all of these variances that are being there, assimilate them, understand how they can classify that, and bring them the right solution at great speed. So post that hyperlocal पे हम लोग बात कर रहे थे. So hyperlocal में जो सबसे important aspect that comes is the speed. आप कंज्यूमर में बात करोगे तो हम बात कर रहे हैं 15 मिनट की डिलीवरी की, 10 मिनट की डिलीवरी की. मे बी व्हेन B2B की बात करेंगे, then we are talking maybe in hours. So the time frame reference can change. Agri-tech में अगर B2B का है तो time का reference change हो जाएगा. But then again, the core of it always remains, is it speedy enough? And it cannot be speedy enough if it is always running through the human intervention. It will be required for quite some time for systems to learn. But at the end of it, the data analytics will be able to expedite that speed for you. There's a reason, I mean, barring all questions aside, there's a reason why Zepto or a bunch of other guys have been able to do it in minutes. There is a reason why Dehat will be able to do it in a couple of hours, what traditionally would have taken, say, a couple of days. There's a reason why Poshan has brought down the time that it takes to fulfill that requirement from half a day to a couple of minutes. And that is why data analytics will keep playing critical role. जितना mature होते जाएंगे system, जितना हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा transactions कर रहे हैं, जितना ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा हम traffic ला रहे हैं platform पे, the more these systems will be reliable. I agree. We might not be 200% reliable to begin with on day zero, but that's a journey. I think as we are moving forward, the reliability will be much higher, and at some point, beating the human expertise which is out there. I mean, it has happened, right? I mean, look at medical as a field. I mean, there is no field more sensitive than medical, right? I mean, if you make an error, there's a human life at cost. But still, how has analytics and data been able to penetrate those segments and make recommendations which are far suitable? So I think for India, it becomes more prudent, where we have a problem of plenty. There are a lot of people, very few experts. And when we are taking solutions to such a huge populations, that's the only way to move forward.
Thanks a lot, Shashank. I think these are good views. I mean, probably we need to work on these areas, how buyers and suppliers, the requirement is. But let me get into a little deeper part of it. So when we are talking of hyperlocal, I think the first thing that we are thinking, every one of us, I mean, including me, is that the time of delivery. So I'll just try to broaden that discussion out. I mean, for hyperlocal value chains to work, and probably your experience can add to it. So does the time of delivery becomes a very critical factor? It's the only factor, or there are multiple other factors which will be critical to hyperlocal value chains and which can actually do a value unlocking. So one thing is that if a Zepto has done something and it's delivering very fast, or someone else has Blinkit is doing. So it is, say, that time of delivery part from a consumer's perspective is really good. But can we also look at other aspects of transaction effectiveness from a farmer or from a supplier? I mean, for us, it will be like farmers.
Yeah.
So quality would be another. Does hyperlocal value chains help the farmers to get a better opportunity, better pricing, or better option for his quality? And does the hyperlocal value chains have a power to transform the way farmer is doing his business? Because that's the core of it. I mean, every business that we are talking of is all hanging on the farmers only.
Yeah.
So are there any other critical factors that can be moved by, or that can be where value can be unlocked by hyperlocal value chains?
I think very well mentioned, and time and speed at which things happen is just one aspect of it. The other aspects, and I believe those are the fundamental bedrocks of things, are the authenticity and quality of the product, and more so in the farmer's case. जो सामान मंगाया गया है, सही सामान का पहुंचना ज्यादा जरूरी है, more than the speed at which it reaches. अगर it was supposed to reach, say, in an hour or so, and वो 2 घंटे में पहुंचा है, I mean, that's not a delight to somebody, but then अगर गलत पहुंचा है, then that's a disaster. And more so where अगर standardization कम है, we talk about pesticides, herbicides, we talk about fertilizers, and if we are not getting the same quality of the product that was supposed to reach, agar same cheez nahi aa rahi, then it will not solve and exaggerate the problem, and the impacts are deep reaching. And like Anupam was mentioning, right, कि उसकी पूरी crop चली जाती है. I mean, that is the level of impact that you are putting out there. So again, उसमें भी it's very interesting how data plays a role. So how we have been able to map attributes to suppliers. मान लीजिए अगर farmer के particular case में करते हैं, there are 10 types of pesticides that are coming into case, and you are able to effectively map the problems that each of these are solving to particular sets. Then the system itself will be able to identify कि अगर इस तरीके की issues आ रहे हैं, and then your IoT also comes into play, जहाँ पे आपने image recognition लगाया, you captured a particular image and you saw these are the 10 issues that are cropping up, and from my database I'm able to map them कि ये problems इस चीज से solve हो जाएगी. Human intervention in such cases will, if not impossible, will be deeply difficult. You will not be able to do that. So the analytics and data is just not helping you mapping the supply chain itself, कि अगर इस रास्ते से जाएंगे तो जल्दी पहुंच जाएंगे, इस warehouse से उठाएंगे तो जल्दी पहुंच जाएंगे. It also helps you get that right quality of the goods that have been to send. वो herbicide, pesticides हो, वो seeds हो, वो fertilizers हो, और या consumer space में वो food items हो, anything we talk about. So the mapping of the requirement set to the supplier set and identifying right quality of the goods that are, they are the bedrock of everything. Speed will always come on top of it. It's good to have. If you are not able to deliver the right quality, then speed matter नहीं करेगी.
Okay, but one another thought that I have, I mean, probably I need to get it ratified from you guys, is that how is it, I mean, what aspect of hyperlocal value chains is going to impact the pricing part? We all talk that yes, consumer wants it faster delivery. We want that yes, it should be pesticide free, and we have a definite segment. Say organic is there, organic segments where we get the say a minimum residue kind of a product, or certified organics are there. So does making it more efficient, more transparent, and particularly from a transparency part. So if you have a consumer, you tell them that okay, this is how transparent we are, and we are delivering you the best of the quality, whatever you require. Can you actually pay us more? So do you believe that this kind of change can be attributed to efficient hyperlocal value chains?
Very well. I believe definitely today's, and especially so in the segments. Let's talk about urban segments in this particular case, because see, your ability to pay also depends on your ability to earn. And urban ecosystems will be pioneers in there, and slowly it will be trickling to the rural ecosystems as well. Today, in today's time, I for a fact know that people will be willing to pay a premium if they are very sure that this particular kind of flour has come from MP's wheat. Say there is a preference for MP's wheat. Or if you are talking about milk, and it's a major issue which is plaguing our urban centers, right? The quality of the milk that is coming from. So if there is a traceability and there is a way that these guys can know, okay, fine, this particular kind of milk is not coming from industrially farmed cows. Rather, there was a locally present cow, and from there this particular kind of milk is coming. People will be willing to pay the quality for it. You look at a classic case of Country Delight. So it's a D2C brand, and I'm bringing it into perspective because milk was always there. Amul's of the world were serving it, Nestle's of the world were serving it, and I'm sure they were able to cater to a particular quality. And then there was local procurement also that was happening. But Country Delight came into play, and just by the sheer weight of their quality, the way they were delivering product, they have been able to make that space for them in a otherwise very cluttered market. I mean, आज की डेट में आप and you are an investor, कोई आपको ये बोलता नहीं मैं दूध का ब्रांड बना रहा हूँ, so the first question that you will come and ask है दूध तो 50 लोग दे रहे हैं, आप क्या अलग कर रहे हो? And in such a play, if a company can come and they are a unicorn or soon to be a unicorn, but they are a fairly large company with a fairly large wallet share of people. And the only fact that they play on is the quality of goods that they are offering. So people will pay for it. It will start from the echelons in the society where people have more propensity to pay, but slowly it will also trickle down to the other rungs of the society as well.
Really good to know that. I think that's how, I mean, it should actually spread. So once the movement happens and the things effect starts to impact, starts to go to the next level or the subsequent branches of the value chain, that's where the value unlocking also happens. So I think at this point, let's move on to Gaurav now. I think Gaurav has been waiting for a very long time. Gaurav, sorry for that. But yes, I know how it feels in the panel when you are asked the.
Oh, like the panelists were my fellow panelists
Yeah.
were quite interesting. Like the thoughts that Shashank told, that Anupam shared was quite interesting, and we totally echo with their thought.
So I think before I pose a question, you have any views on what I was asking about from both of them? If you would like to add to that, anything on the digitization part or on anything on the data
So
analytics part?
rightly said by Shashank, and even we have experienced the same thing while talking about crop insurance part. So when we started, we have seen a very less amount of traction in crop insurance part, but slowly, gradually, when we started doing this thing with lot more of farmers, we have seen that farmers are started putting interest. So in a way, they are putting money to the same, like let's example, for growing the same wheat or buying the same seed, they are putting X amount. So for taking the paid insurance, they are paying something more on that. So that clearly shows that the farmer is actually moving, and we are like following the same trend, that the purchase power parity is actually started increasing. So that clearly shows the same trend.
Right. I think, yeah. So, I mean, people are ready to pay the premium once they get the trust. So that
Yeah.
trust factor is a very important part. So that brings me to the question that I wanted to ask you is about how we believe that hyperlocal value chains, I mean, these are something which are like, it's easy to implement initially, but then it's very difficult to replicate. There are a lot of nuances. There are a lot of, I mean, scaling up issues which are there. I mean, trust becomes another factor, and the way Operation becomes another factor, which how it operates in different geographies of the country. So, I mean, you have already gone through that phase where you have expanded from one place to another to all the geographies. Now,
Mhm.
I mean, I request you to share your views on how, what are the challenges in scaling up these kind of farmer-centric or hyper-local models, which works on this ecosystem of hyper-local value chains?
Okay. So thanks, Ajay. So before discussing the challenge, let me clear the strength first. So I would say what are our strength that we continues to have. Uh, we have experience from right from starting from our geography to like working in 190 districts. So definitely we understand the need of the farmer in every geography. So we know the right doses of the farmer. Okay, what is the right dose that exactly is needed according to the agriculture plot. We know the purchase priority. So you know कि कौन सा crop किस region में कौन सा चलेगा. Mycorrhiza यहाँ पे कोई और चल रहा है, कहीं पे कोई और चल रहा होगा. You know कि वहाँ पे कितना spend कर सकता है farm. And these things you experience whole year, 12 month. So, and you are crop agnostic. So definitely that trust is established because you know the need, you know the doses, you know the purchase priority, and you know you are crop agnostic. So definitely the trust is established. The second strength is the supply chain because since you are in 190 district, daily procuring about 38 metric ton of commodity, having 9,000 plus last mile network. So you have this strong supply chain established. So you have the trust and you have a strong foundation established. Now here comes the challenge part. So challenge part is first is virality. So everything is established, but you are not going viral. So the scale is very linear. Every time you have to spend that much of every time you have to spend that much of effort on every geography. So scale is very linear because the virality is not there. Also, the online payment thing is very less because even the UPI penetration in India is 3 to 5%. So online payment is very less, and that's why the virality is very less. And the same point that Anupam has covered, that digital adoption is very less. When you're talking about scale, the adoption is very less, and hence the behavior change is taking so much of time. So अगर आपने बिहार सॉल्व कर लिया तो फिर ये सेम चैलेंज आप महाराष्ट्र में फेस करते हो, द सेम चैलेंज, द डिफरेंट सेट ऑफ चैलेंज गोइंग टू फेस ऑन द गुजरात साइड. So definitely these are the thing that is going to be a road blocker for each of us, the startup ecosystem that is working on hyper local, and it will going to solve eventually. It's not going to be it's not going to be solved then and there. It's going to be solved eventually. So yeah, that's the biggest challenge that we as a company are facing. But yeah, things are moving very fast. Things are moving very well because you know the local nuances, you know the local thing, you have the right set of data, you have the right set of people there, you have the physical model because they have this physical then digital model. So everything is there, but we are like and we have seen that virality during the COVID. We have seen a sharp raise in the curve, like people doing everything on their own. Adoption of technology is there. But when you're talking about so much of scale, definitely virality, online payment, and digital adoption, these are the challenges that we face.
So another thing, another aspect to it is, I mean, when a larger e-commerce or a larger business company is trying to expand, you face challenges with the local businesses also.
Mhm.
So those are also, I mean, some bit of challenges which you might be facing. And the second thing that I wanted to know was on the cost part of it. You know,
Mhm.
we theoretically we are understanding that yes, there will be challenges and you can expand it, it can go good. But what about the cost part of it? I mean, how does that vary when you expand? And what are the challenges that you face with the local operators who are there, who are in the same business?
Okay, since your model is very hyper local, so it is a hub and spoke model where you go and talk to the existing player there. You convince them that okay, these are the things that you want to adopt if you want to scale your business. I'm talking about the agri retailers.
Mhm.
So the model of Dehat is like the first step is like building trust with that agri retailer. So it's not like he वहां पे जाके Dehat is talking about. It's like the agri retailers, though we have trained them, they are talking about. So trust is established on the day one. Like trust is there because farmers are known to that agri retailer. So first step of trust has been established. Then talking about, then we like train these agri retailer, we talk about the technology, we talk about the uh, agronomy, we talk about how you are going to deal with such a huge farmer. So then again, the entire things fall apart, like everything fall in place, because you know you're talking about the local. Talking about the cost side of it, so I would say definitely yes, there's a cost involved. There's a cost involved, and that's why you are operating in a very less cross-friendly model. You're not putting your own center everywhere, because that's an hub and spoke model, the franchise model, that you don't have to owe the space every time. You have a satellite node that is working. A good supply chain makes you enable to supply to that node without having a physical setup. Everything is going digital, so you have a hold on your content, you have a hold on your entire value proposition. So that is going to that is helping us in like scaling and like in controlling all the cost.
So good. Talking of these models, now I'll open up the space again. Now, a common question to all of you, all three of you. I mean, when we talk of very specific value chains, and specific businesses that are working in these areas, so what kind of business models, I mean, would be successful? So we have the terminology like COCO models, the company owned, company operated kind of thing, or the company owned, franchisee operated. So and there are aggregator models, and there are different types of other models. Now I'll open the space up, and let's understand from you guys what kind of model suits what kind of requirements, and with the context of agriculture or the agriculture value chains. Anyone, Anupam, maybe you or Shashank.
So, yeah. So I think the journey is a trust-based journey. So obviously, if you company-owned, company-operated model give you the delight to a greater extent, and typically anybody who starts will start with such a model because you have to build that trust in the participants who are out there. Then comes the angle that Gaurav was mentioning. Cost will definitely start scaling up when you are operating at all and all company-owned, company-operated model, or scale will be a challenge. You will not be able to scale in such a zone. So that is where you start drifting towards that element where you have standardized various aspects of quality check, of giving that delight. And once you have standardized them, then you just need to put a framework around folks who are owning a franchisee of yours, and just have to ensure that those quality checks and parameters are being met. And that's where you can offload that expense that was on your books to a certain other entity and still keep delivering that delight. So it's a slippery slope if you're not able to standardize those aspects which are very critical to the consumer. And this runs across. I mean, we can talk about any consumer. If farmer is a consumer, he will be centered around it. If we as consumers talk about, we'll also be centered around it. So it always starts in a fashion where we build that brand and trust. Once we have built that brand and trust, we standardize aspects of quality and consumer delight, and then we can very well look to move towards a franchisee model where we just become the guardians of that quality and those aspects being measured and monitored.
Yeah, I think that's a very fairly simple way of putting it across, was that you first build the trust, invest into it, and once that investment is done, standardize it, and then go for the thing. Sorry. Anupam, Gaurav, you want to add to it, or you want to give your views on it?
So definitely, as a company owned, company operated model is very asset heavy model, and you don't want to, and you are experiencing, you're exploring new geography. So you can't have so much of confidence that you are going to have company owned and company operated model. Definitely franchise owned and company operated, where you have a set of rule defined. Yeah. So initially you experiment that rule, try to learn that whether that is working or not. You change your rule according to the model, according to the geography, and then you scale it down. So, and definitely that supply chain part and the strong value proposition that you are delivering to that guy, considering on the price side, on the regular delivery. So that is there. So that give you a good trust and good strength, and you continue to scale without having a major dent on your balance sheet.
Right. I think franchise, I mean, cost is also a major consideration there. That we need to take care of.
And I think there the technology comes into the place. Like you have a good scale of technology, वो आपने tech बना लिया है, you have right content. Then I think company franchise owned and company operated will be.
Right. Anupam, anything from the technology side that you believe can really work out good for, I mean, having a successful business model there? Anupam, you are on mute. We can't hear you.
Yeah, Jay. So sure. So I will put in this way that first we need first any organization, any business model need to decide what problem we want to solve. Accordingly, we can go for this business model that, for example, if we want to solve this problem of logistics, that we want to provide this agri input or any FMCG product to the doorstep of the rural people, then our focus is to solve this hyper local this supply chains. So we can use technology to build a marketplace where all the agri retailers or wholesalers are available in that marketplace, and rural people are ordering from that, and we are solving that they are getting it quickly at their doorstep. So number one approach is that it is and of course it depends on how much money you are having in your pocket. So if you want to deliver quality product, then definitely it has to be you have to have control on the inventory, you have to procure from the reputed manufacturers, and this is a little asset heavy model, and definitely it the problem which you are going to solve will be deciding the model you pick and choose. So that's my take on this thing, and technology is going to play a very important role, of course, because this is very unpenetrated market. So if you want to scale up, the scale is not possible without technology. You it is not your choice, it is not our choice to use technology or not. It is by compulsion we need to use technology to scale.
That's right. That's right. I think, I mean, technology can be an enabler. Definitely, it can be an enabler. It can enable a lot of things. But yes, we need to be sure of what we are trying to solve. I mean, whether it is the question of bringing down the cost or delivering the right set of target audience, or providing a specific quality or a feature to the customer. So that's what we need to do. No. Another, I mean, aspect. Now we've talked about the businesses. We've talked about what are the components, how we can build trust, what are the business operating models. Another aspect here is which you all will, I'm sure that you all will appreciate, is the role of the regulators or the governments that is there. And I'm sure that every state you have faced challenges in that, or you face different issues in 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 interacting in dealing with them. So just wanted to have your views on what do you believe that what can be an ideal role of a regulator or government in order to promote this kind of ecosystem.
So I think Ajay like already mentioned that 3 days back, one gadget has been shared by central government that you can sell insecticide on e-commerce. So that's a clear way forward that the government is thinking in that direction. Definitely, you face challenges in every like you need to have license to work for. Every state have their own rules and regulations. Every state their own license criteria. So definitely there's a challenge, and we all are dealing with that. But yes, the road towards that is very positive because government started looking, and we can see that coming in future we have a lot more intervention from the government side.
So, Shashank?
Yeah, definitely. So Ajay, we can keep saying कि framework government का rigid हो जाता है, time लग जाता है चीजें नीचे आने, but we also need to realize that policy makers at the crux of it have to see the greater good in mind. So ऐसा नहीं है कि government has not enabled the ecosystem. You look at the fintech play which is out there, and government has been a huge proponent of it. Now they have not allowed certain things in certain places, but then they are also keeping the greater good in mind. We are not just those 10, 20, 50 startups who are out there in the ecosystem. There is a broader population at task. So वो रहता है, things move slow because it's a massive country. थोड़ा slow रहता है, speed धीरे रहती है, but I think government has been providing right infrastructure. Payments, I mean, I can't stop talking about payments and the tech stack in payments that we have been carrying. We are ahead of any other developed economy that you talk about in terms of the payment stack that we have, and hence you'll see the fintechs that are coming out of India are world reaching. So I think it will take some more time for them to come to grounds with whatever is happening in the agri ecosystem. But otherwise, I think right from raising small amounts of capital to providing platforms to connect, and I have been talking to some of the folks at NABARD as well. So there is an ecosystem and there's a strong push by the government, more so in the agri sector, because it impacts so many people out there. So things have been moving. They might be slow to our liking, but then they are moving in the right direction.
So that's I completely agree. I mean, the fintech part, yes, government has taken a very good leading role into it, and it's like more like a flag bearer. I mean, not only for India but also for different other countries. Any other area that you believe that which needs to improve or government needs to take a greater role into it?
I think licensing, like Gaurav was mentioning, maybe the speed with which things move for licensing, and there will be a bunch of licenses that we all as agri participants a lot of time and need to, even if you are a platform and you are trading into, say, agri commodities, there are a bunch of food licenses, etc., that you will need to bring into play. I think the speed to expedite them, a unified channel to get them cleared will be the need of the hour. So that, I think that is one thing I would be really wanting to, and I think Gaurav and Anupam can throw some more light as to what challenges they have faced in like dealing with the governments.
Anupam, anything you want to add?
So Shashank is right, but we need to understand this. The set of people with whom we are dealing are very sensitive, like farmers. So these are very sensitive people. So whenever this policy making and making framework for them, so it has to be a gradual process, which has started. Like Gaurav was already mentioning that there is a green signal to sell insecticide and these side on e-commerce platform. And during our journey also, Ajay, what we have realized is like government is also matching the pace of the startups. Like when we approached CWC for tying up, they welcomed us with their open arms, and they really did it very quickly, right? So what I feel is it is a gradual process, but I appreciate the pace of the government with which they are helping these especially agri startups to deliver what they want to deliver. As I said that the set of people with whom we are dealing are very sensitive, so policy making may take some time, but it will happen for sure.
Right. So so that's on the part of the government. Anyone wanted to add something? Sorry, I heard something. So, so I think now we've discussed about how role of the government can play, or rather, what are the different models that we can look at. Now, another important aspect, which for hyperlocal businesses would be in terms of looking at creation of local capabilities. Local capabilities, we could see that in terms of, say, COVID, there were very huge shortage of labor, which happened. Everyone moved to their own places. No one was there. So labor shortage was there. Or trained drivers were not there for manning the logistics part. There were multiple other things. So I'll just bring the focus to that area, that point. What do you think in terms of capacity development needs to be done to make this ecosystem a robust one?
I think, Ajay, it's more to, it will always be demand led. See, till the point folks will be traveling 40 kilometers to get a certain procurement done and not procure it locally, till that particular time, the manufacturers, processors, or small scale retail outlets in those areas will not be incentivized to build those capabilities. Rarely it has so happened that you build capabilities and sit on top of them, keep waiting for the demand to come, right? So it will always be with the advent that the demand starts kicking in, and that's where the local manufacturers and processors start investing in those capabilities. And COVID was a classic case. The moment it so happened that the other supply chains were cut where you are not able to procure from distances apart, and that's immediate at that particular point of time. Local shopkeepers started building those space, started investing that capital also to store things. So I think it will very well be driven with the demand aspect of it. And if folks start reveling on the hyper local consumption, the hyper local shops, retailers, manufacturers, processors, I mean, we can talk consumer or businesses, they will start investing into it, and it will be a cyclic effect thereafter.
So you're saying that it will be all demand driven initiatives which are going to come up.
Right.
I mean, Gaurav, Anupam, do you agree on that, or you have?
I completely agree with Shashank, and it is the way forward. So it is totally demand driven. Like we are seeing the shift in Swiggy, Zomato, whatever you say, it is demand driven.
All right. Anything from your side, Gaurav?
So completely agree, and we can look at in this aspect, like during COVID, people are moving. So all those people who are not particularly in their village, working in the remote area, working in some other states, so they moved to their town, and because that was a period where everyone is looking to be with their family, and at that time, you can see that demand was 3x. So we can say that we have grown 3x during that period. So that time people realize that agar definitely if there is a demand, and if there is everything there, so you don't have to run uh, from your local village to work in a different state. So definitely, and yes, you have to continuously work on the demand side, because you have to make ensure that they have enough earning, they have enough room for earning. So that is where your model comes in. That is where your hyper local model in fact comes in.
Right, right. But I mean, a little divergent view on that. I mean, demand definitely will be a driver. But forced demand makes it worse. COVID was a kind of a forced demand kind of a scenario where some situation suddenly happened. It forced a lot of things onto us. But in order to make it more prepared, I think we need to work out systematically that yes, these kind of capabilities needs to be there. Say, for example, trained manpower. For businesses to effectively run there, or for logistic operations to happen, or even for other transaction based services to happen. So those are something which is like prepared, or a well prepared kind of a capability development that can be done. It may be in terms of training manpower. It may be in terms of training people on how to do this kind of business, or connecting to service providers who are locally available. So those kind of things will definitely work very well for the hyperlocal business. Another thing now I just wanted to understand, or rather to put forward to you, is what do you believe that this scenario for hyperlocal businesses, would that be more suitable for a B2B kind of businesses, or to B2C kind of businesses?
So definitely room for scope for both the business. So B2B, definitely cost is going to be a challenge. Operating cost is going to be a challenge.
This meeting is being recorded.
नहीं रहता. I mean, yeah, the consumers are attuned to that 5-minute, 10-minute story. But in B2B, ठीक है. मतलब अगर 2 घंटे का story है, 2.5 घंटे का है, that's fine. So I think B2B, as much as it has not shown that much of an advent to begin with, but I think B2B will clearly be easier and beneficial to execute hyperlocal के मामले में.
Anupam, anything from your side?
Yeah, sure. So irrespective it is B2B or B2C, hyperlocal value chain creation is need of the hour, and it will help for both the businesses. But I fully agree, Shashank, that implementation of B2B, considering the expectation and the reach, is a little this easier stuff rather than solving this B2C problem for this hyperlocal. That's why this space, this challenge make this space very exciting, you know. That is the
Right.
beauty of this space.
Right. I'll just pause here. Vikas, we just wanted to check with you. Is there any questions being posted
Yes, Mr. Kakra, some of the questions are getting posted on the chat.
on the chat?
Yeah. So
Okay.
basically, it's about the cost associated with B2C hyperlocal operations and how to optimize and reduce them. You can also take a look at the chart. There aren't too many questions. So I would urge the
Okay, yeah.
audience to post their doubts and questions as well.
Right, right.
I think
I
now
think
is the
we
right
can
time.
take some questions at this stage. Shashank, there's another one question here which says about the B2C hyperlocal operating cost, and it says that it killed many startups. So how do?
Yeah, I think Guna from Haha Mart is asking that question, that B2C hyperlocal operating costs killed many. See, that's bound to happen, guys. There will always be a muscle man in your area who, with all their might, will try to subdue or rather kill what you have mentioned, other startups that are coming on. That's where a differentiator plays a role. So it has happened numerous times that somebody from grounds up have come up and made a large enough business. So how you survive the onslaught of 50 others who are out there? How was Ola able to come up when Uber was out there? So there is some differentiator that you need to bring out. A differentiator will always come to the fact that how closely you are related to the consumer that you are serving. So आप अपनी locality में अगर कुछ भी build up करने की कोशिश करो, then you have greater sympathy to the needs of that particular audience. But if you are trying to ride a bandwagon, and then there is somebody ahead of you on that bandwagon with greater might of resources, be it capital, manpower, technology, then that early startup way is bound to be crushed. The only way to survive it, bring that differentiator on. That could be the quality of the product, that could be the kind of things that you are dealing in, that could be